Hey, what's up? My name is Chris, and this is Guitar for Orchestrators. The idea of this series is to just kind of go through the basics of guitar to the more complex, advanced, prepared guitar techniques, and just kind of give composers and orchestrators a deeper understanding of what the guitar can do. So we're going to start with the basics of guitar today. There are four main types of guitars here. You can break it down into two categories. You have electric and acoustic. Your acoustic guitars can be broken down into steel string acoustic and nylon acoustic. The steel string has a rounder finger board, which is where your left hand goes when you play, and it is a brighter sound, whereas the nylon tends to be a lot flatter fingerboard with a warmer sound. Good references will be included below for each, but steel string is your typical pop style acoustic guitar, that very plucky country sound, whereas nylon is your classical, warm, romantic type sound, very commonly used in film scoring. They're both can be played very similarly. You don't typically strum a nylon. Instead, the performer sits with his left leg elevated, and they do fingerstyle type. And the steel string guitar can be played plucked or strummed or anything. Both are very versatile instruments. The other type of guitar you may come across is the electric guitar. Now, I say there's two types of electrics. There's the clean electric and the distorted electric. Those are two broad categories. That doesn't really affect the player as much as nylon or steel string would, whereas that's really just a tonal characteristic. So with an electric guitar, a common thing to be aware of is the tone. All the same techniques are possible regardless of electronics, pedals, amp settings, so we'll go into that in a later video. But for now, know the electric guitar can do a huge range. The guitar, acoustic, electric, nylon, regardless of style, is organized the same across all the instruments. In a standard guitar, there are 6 strings. From low to high, it's Eddie, 8, Dynamite, Good, Bye, Eddie. E, A, D, G, B, E. Each string is divided with frets. Now, every guitar is different. Different guitars will have different amounts of frets. This one, for example, has 24. This has 21. So the upper range on each string will vary from guitar to guitar, player to player. But overall, the guitar is very similar across all these instruments. So writing for them is very similar regardless of which you write for. So just be aware that a lot of it comes down to tone in your instrument choice, rather than don't get caught up in the specifics of, oh, is it a single pickup, double pickup, whatever. Now, each fret represents a half step on the guitar. The guitar is a very geometric instrument. Compared to the piano, where it's very linear, left to right, each note only occurs in one spot. On the guitar, you can have one note appear 6, 7 different places. Because of this, it's very easy to transpose, and it's very easy for guitar players to learn like 2 or 3 scales and be set for life, which is a lot of amateur guitar players. They'll learn the pentatonic scale, and that's it, because that just moves around. Now, the typical range for a guitar player is a little over 2 octaves per position. Now, it's very common for guitar players to change position while they play. A violin player has a little more difficulty because they don't have frets, but guitar players can go up and down the neck at will. So single note lines work very well on the guitar. One position, without having to move their hand, is 4 frets per string, with the first finger moving down a fret and the pinky moving up a fret. So that's 6 frets, which would be about a tritone on one string, and going down to the high string. The problem for composers and orchestrators come when you are trying to determine chord voicings, if you're trying to give a guitar specific voicing to use. There are some very common shapes on the guitar that almost every guitar player knows. You've got your standard 9 shape, your 13, open cowboy chords. Now, the biggest thing is drop 2s and drop 3s, and all their inversions, and closed triads are very much accessible, very playable. Once you start getting into bigger chords than triads or closed position chords, like try to use all 6 strings, you have to understand the finger logic behind it. That is a little more of a complicated subject, but generally power chords closed triads, open triads, drop 2s and drop 3s for 7th chords, triads, whatever, all work. To have a better idea of if something fits in the hand or not, look at a note chart and see. Usually the only bar with the first finger, so we can go across all 4, and then these other fingers have to sit in a way that doesn't stretch too far, as well as allows us to bend our fingers so the strings underneath can go. It all comes down to the dexterity of the player. Many times the voicing is really good to leave up to the specific guitar player, and you can kind of work with them in the studio, collaborate, because with guitar, every guitar player plays in a different way. There are so many specialized guitar players. Each guitar player kind of has their own style, their own preferred voicings, their own preferred patterns, and it just kind of comes down to knowing who you're working with versus here's something that works for all guitar players. The guitar has a couple main parts. We have the bridge, the body, the neck, the nut, and the tuning pegs. Tuning pegs change the string, the pitch of the string. The neck board, fingerboard, is where we put our hands and change the length of the string when we play. The bridge is where the strings terminate, and the body is the big mass that resonates when we perform. Each of these can be manipulated depending on the type of guitar to create different effects. So you may detune your guitar to get a different tuning to transpose the instrument. You may use a bridge with a tremolo bar to change the pitch and the length of the string while you're performing, create like vibrato, do pitch bends. Or you may change your hand position on the fingerboard.